Good afternoon, my friends. This is Paul, and today I'm going to be reviewing to you Lost Lands Dark Overlord Free-to-Play Edition for the Nintendo Switch. The reason why I'm being so oddly specific is that this was actually released on the Switch twice. The first, for about $7, is just the vanilla Lost Lands Dark Overlord Edition. The second is a free-to-play version, but the catch is that in order to get more hint coins, you either have to wait a certain amount of time for the free coins to regenerate, and even then there's only a limited number, or pay actual money to get more coins, which aren't even guaranteed to help you that much, but we'll rant and rave about the hint system later. For now, let's talk about the basic gameplay. So this is a point-and-click adventure game where you control a mother named Susan who's trying to rescue her son from a bunch of demons that dragged him into a portal into another world. You play through the game by moving this green cursor around the screen, and you interact with objects in the style of those old PC point-and-click adventure games, and you find objects and you have to figure out how the objects can help you solve puzzles in the environment. This part works relatively okay. The clunky user interface and the weird, obnoxious controls don't really translate well to the Switch. I didn't realize that this was touch controlled until very late into my playthrough, so it felt like the lack of being able to adjust the speed of the cursor really dragged down the experience a lot more than it could have been. I don't know, maybe I would have agreed with all the critics for giving this 4 out of 5 stars and saying it's a masterpiece in game design, but honestly, I grew up with a lot of the Humongous Entertainment games, and this is nowhere near the charm of those original adventures. Because first of all, every scene was fully animated, but the animations in this game are really hit or miss. On one hand, there are some interesting special effects designs, but interesting is the nicest thing I can say about them, because sometimes things either aren't animated or they feel like someone's just moving a puppet. There is voice acting, but most of the characters only appear for 2 or 3 scenes and then you completely forget about them. The charming personalities and cheesy yet somewhat believable dialogue of the Humongous games are completely lost here. Not only that, but the voice acting is so horrendous that even if the characters had some semblance of a personality, you'd probably forget about them immediately after they disappear, because most of them only appear for between 1 to 3 scenes. No, I am not exaggerating. Also, what's the point of establishing a protagonist in this game if you're not even gonna give her a personality? Literally, I kept track of how many things I learned about the woman I was controlling, and I learned 2 things about her the whole time. The first is that she loves her son. That much is obvious. The second is that she's afraid of snakes. If you're gonna have a protagonist, can't you at least give her some kind of unique trademark that makes it so that you're rooting for her and you're not just feeling like you are the audience? It really kind of took me out of the experience. Also, not to mention that when the protagonist actually does use an object to solve a puzzle, they don't even show the protagonist animating the action she's doing. Like, say she's digging up something in the ground, it'll just show a disembodied shovel moving by itself. Like, does the woman have telekinesis powers or something? That just seems like such an odd way to animate when this game has cutscenes, and it does show the woman running and gesturing and all that, but a simple digging, opening a door, you couldn't even bother to do that? Now, to split up the monotony of grabbing item, seeing what item does in the environment, which, as you've probably guessed from this kind of genre, sometimes the puzzles don't always make the most sense. You also play little mini-games and puzzles throughout the adventure to break up the tedium. Sometimes you have to mix and match objects so that they're rotated in a certain way. Sometimes you'll have to slide blocks and pieces. And sometimes you'll do very odd, like Where's Waldo type of puzzles where you either have to find all the hidden objects in the environment, or you have all the objects and you have to figure out where they go. Or you have a spot the difference puzzle. And these are okay. They're just really poorly explained in the tutorial so that the controls don't always make a lot of sense. And sometimes it doesn't really make a lot of sense what you have to do in the moment. And I don't know. I just feel like this game is very horribly controlled. Like I said, you can't control the speed of the cursor, so a lot of times it feels so sluggish. Then a lot of times I feel like the way to open the inventory is really clunky because you press the X button to open it, but then you have to press X again to use the item that's currently equipped. Like, isn't this the kind of thing that you'd normally press the A button for in any other game? Or, if we use the humongous entertainment games that I grew up with, you would hold the left mouse button on the item and then drag them to whatever part of the environment they went to. Why is there no option to drag them when some of the puzzles have that very mechanic? Also, I feel like a lot of the puzzles and solutions tend to repeat themselves unnecessarily, and a lot of items are really just parts of a bigger whole. There are more puzzles than I would care to admit where you need 3 runes to open up a door, or you need 7 different mosaic pieces. And it's like, some of the puzzles have it so that all of the mosaic pieces are clumped together. Did you just artificially lengthen the game to make this feel like a cohesive world? Because I am not really invested in the world building, I'm not invested in the characters or the settings. The best thing I can say about this whole experience is that the music is good, but the music is usually very quiet and is drowned out by the ambient noises, which are also done really well. But when you don't care about the rest of the game, it's like, what's even the point of putting in all of this effort if you're not going to actually feel invested in the action because they can't bother to animate the protagonist most of the time? Now, the game is decently long if you don't know what you're doing, but if you do know what you're doing, then you can get this over with probably in between 25 to 30 minutes, so I've been told. Although, honestly, the replay value of this is pretty horrendous, mostly because the way the hints are implemented in the free-to-play version is really sloppily done. Or should I say grossly done, depending on your definition. So basically, you start out by getting a certain amount of hint coins, and if you use a hint, then the game has a bunch of green sparkles that'll point you in the general direction of where you need to go. If you're already in the right area, then it'll just point to what part of the room you need to go to. However, these only last for a few seconds, and if you say blink or sneeze or anything like that, then, oh well, you just lost a hint coin, you better get some more. Now, you can get more free coins, but as is every other mobile game's tradition, there's a timer that makes it so that you have to wait a certain amount of minutes for the free coins to regenerate. Even then, you only have so many before the game just gives up entirely and says, okay, fork over the cash, which is entirely unnecessary because this game has been out since 2014 on the iPhone, so there are plenty of walkthroughs and Let's Plays that you can reference. So, why would you even want to pay the hint coins? The only thing I can possibly think of that even makes the slightest bit of logical sense is if you want to support these developers in case they make better games in the future or you've liked their games in the past. But if they're going to be this half-hearted about everything in this game and not give me a reason to care about this, then I don't want to support them. Not only that, but I'm generally not a fan of free-to-play games. I'm the type of guy that if you're gonna do stuff like DLC, make it so that it's a once and done purchase. So let's say I did support the developers and I'm like, okay, I'll buy like 5 hint coins, but then let's say that the hint coins don't help me, because that's another problem. Sometimes the hints literally do nothing. Like one time I was struggling with the puzzle that involves sliding objects around to get into the right place, and I was like, oh man, this is really annoying. And I've played Layton-Games, so a lot of these puzzles were pretty trial and error, but some of them just really grinded my gears. But then when I asked for a hint, the game would just say nope. And so I was resorted to needing to do an internet walkthrough. So here's another contradiction. If you're gonna force a player to not be able to use a hint when they actually want to, then why even have the hint coins at all? Why not just encourage the players to do an online walkthrough if the hint system isn't going to be consistent? So is there any merit to this game whatsoever, you might be asking? If you're completely disconnected in the story and the characters, then you could get minute amounts of fun, I guess, if you really like grabbing MacGuffins and putting them in place, but there are so many better examples of this even on Nintendo systems. Pajama Sam, Freddy Fish, and Spy Fox are all on the Wii, and they work really well because the Wii Remote acts as a good substitute for the computer mouse. In this, you can use the touchscreen during handheld mode, but it's often inconsistent, as you can push your fingers together iPhone style to zoom in on things, but when you're playing it on the TV, for one, you can't use the Pro Controller, and two, even though the game supports the Joy-Cons, you can't use the pointer function of the Joy-Cons to move the cursor faster, which you can do on the PC versions of this game. So did the developers not have the money to do that, and they put most of it in the graphics? That seems like a very bizarre overstep. So I didn't really like this game. The only reason I finished it was because I got so far into it that I'm like, I might as well review it. Ironically, this is also the first game I've reviewed that's a 2021 game that technically isn't, but 2021 has been weird lately because The Witcher 3 just got released on Switch, and you might be thinking, Paul, that's been around since 2019, but this is the version without the DLC, and you can pay for the DLC packs later. A very weird way of release. So this is a version of a priced game that gives you the option to pay for hint coins later. Okay, developers, I get that we're in a pandemic, but can you at least explain your reasoning behind these decisions so we're not just thinking like, did you hit your head on a rock or something? So with that, I'm sorry if I've been overly harsh, you guys, but I can't find a single reason to recommend this, especially when this game lacks so much personality, and there's so many better point-and-click adventure games out there, probably a lot of which I haven't even discovered. So if you're going to get any version, I recommend getting the free-to-play version, but only if you have access to an internet so that you don't have to deal with the annoying microtransactions. But even then, I highly recommend you just skip this. So that's a lovely way to start 2021 reviews. Hopefully Bowser's Fury will do a much better job, because that's what I'm hoping to review next. So, do you think I was too harsh? Do you think maybe I wasn't harsh enough on this game's shortcomings? Let me know in the comment section down below. Do you enjoy this game? And do you have any critiques for how you'd like me to do things better? Let me know, and until the next time, keep the faith, stay epic, God bless, and point-and-click adventure games, take a leaf from Humongous Entertainment's book the next time you're going to make an adventure like this. Bye!